Yo, 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 what is going on, my beautiful brothers and sisters, fellow radiators of love? My name is Jamal Pope, aka jayfenixx, and in this video, we're going to just be doing a bit of an astrological catch-up, astrological, I guess, honestly, April at a glance. Just kind of want to look over these April transits with you guys. It's been a couple of weeks since I made a video. So, wanted to just kind of go over the astrology, what's been going on, what's to come this April. And like I said, this is going to be at a glance. So, I'm going to be talking about a couple of the major transits this month, but I'm not going to go into every little thing, because if I did, this video will be hours, and hours long. And this, of course, will be general. So, this is going to be for like every single sign, essentially. I'm not going to draw cards for every single sign. I might do something like that later in the week. Who knows? We'll see. But I wanted to go over this stuff, and I wanted to answer the question, of course. When is it going to get a little bit smoother, right? Where is it going to get smoother? Let's find out. Welcome back, my beautiful brothers and sisters. jayfenixx here, and of course, we're going to be talking about April at a glance, looking at these astrological transits and answering the question: when is it going to get a little bit smoother? When is it going to get a little bit easier? This energy has been wild all over the place, and everyone is trying to figure out how to manage. It's almost as if like it really feels like the energy of like we're all just like a foal that was just freshly born, and our legs are like shaking. We're trying to figure out how to walk on fire during a torrential downpouring rain with thunder and lightning all at the same time. And the sun's also somehow shining through all this too. That's what it can kind of feel like, right? There's so much stuff happening right now, and it can become very disorienting. And I'm kind of looking around the world around me, and I don't think anyone is impervious to this desire to find some level of escapism through all this, especially with all this Piscean energy, especially with North Node here. Mercury is now retrograded back into Pisces, of course. So is Venus. Venus is about to stop on top of Saturn. It'll be with Saturn for 3 weeks, pretty much the entire month. And then it'll eventually come into Aries right at the tail end of the month. And that's when I'm thinking it's going to get at least a little bit more chill. But we're just going to the next phase of the story, that is 2025. So to really answer the question before, I don't think it's necessarily going to get easier. I think we're going to learn how to ride this bike a little bit better. Because, I thought about it the other day, and I was like, you know what? The training wheels are really coming off right now. And we're being encouraged to ride the bike without the training wheels. And I think we as humanity, we kind of go through these cycles, right? Where it's like we push the boundaries and then we stop. And then maybe we try to push it, but there's a retraction. So we put training wheels on, we put barriers on that prevent us from going faster, that prevent us from going further. I mean, you can ride your bike from point A to point B with training wheels and without training wheels, and you'll still make it, but the speed of which you'll get there, of course, is going to be impacted, right? But taking those training wheels off, you can go much further, you can go much faster, you can feel the wind in your face. And I feel like that's where we are right now. I feel like the training wheels are coming off in many ways, from like a spiritual sense, from an esoteric sense. It does feel in many ways like God is like, all right, the training wheels are coming off for real this time, and is coasting us along so we can ride our bike. And I think what we are seeing right now is a sort of clamp down in many ways, that some people are feeling like, oh snap, like there's this weird fear that's creeping up with all this energy here at the end of Pisces, right? And all this energy really at the end of the zodiac in general. Of course, Saturn here, Neptune is going to be oscillating in and out of Aries, as will Saturn will be oscillating in and out of Aries to Pisces and back to Aries. And then, of course, you have Pluto here at the end of Aquarius, which is going to really be wrapping up the whole story. But, of course, It's got to go through Aquarius, so it's going to be there for a while, and it's got to go through Pisces. So we're not really at the end, but we are definitely in this massive transition moment where the training wheels are in many ways coming off, and God is coaching us and encouraging us to ride our bike further. And I think what we're seeing is a clamp down from many different angles too, of people's like, because they feel like they're getting they feel like there's like a straying away from God or from Spirit, that there's like a clamp down on like, you have to do it this way, we have to get back to tradition, we have to get back to this, we have to get back to the way things were. And there's an element of truth in that, but it's not the whole truth and it's not the full truth. And that can also operate as a sort of prison for us too, where people are feeling like the training wheels are coming off and now they're riding this bike metaphorically further away from God, if you will. And yet God is encouraging them to go out and to explore the cosmos, and encouraging them to go out and explore more, but always come back home. So as a kid, when you rode your bike, you would only go so far. But then as you got older, you would go further and further and further away. But you always come back home, hopefully, right? And that's kind of where we are right now. So there's a fear among some people that the further we stray from God, some people may forget to come back home. They may forget to come back to Source. They may forget to come back to Spirit. So you're going to see the rise of a bit of fanaticism within religious areas, conservative areas. But there's also the same thing that's happening in many ways in the more, I guess, the non-religious areas, if you will. You're going to start to see that a little bit more too. Ironically, even though it seems like it wants to just expand. And I'm going to bring the astrology into this. I just kind of wanted to just like share some of my thoughts overall with this, because it's just, I'm seeing both sides. I'm seeing this clamp down of the expansion, but I'm also seeing this unfeathered need to make everything one amorphous ideological gray blob. I see both happening right now. And I think that there are certain aspects, certain pockets of humanity that have fooled themselves into believing, and I was actually once, I want to say a part of it, but once having like an ideology that was a little bit closely resembling this idea of no definitions, no borders, I get it. People want to achieve this world peace, utopian, no borders, all-inclusive, multicultural democracy. But the planets are saying that we are going in the actual opposite direction of that. And that it's not going to necessarily be about this all-inclusivity that we think is actually what we need at this time, but it's going in this opposite direction. Ironically, the planets are playing this out. So there's a bit of a pull and push going right now. There's a pull back on people thinking that we've gone too far, and there's a push on people thinking that we haven't gone far enough. And the truth is actually somewhere in the middle. The truth is that maybe we've gone too far in some areas, but maybe we haven't gone far enough in other areas. And that's the synthesis of what we are looking to find here. And what 2025 is going to be about is a major catalyst for us finding that middle space, that middle ground again. The yin and the yang. Not getting so lost in the yin, not getting so lost into the yang, not getting so lost into the light, not getting so lost into the dark, but actually finding the true balance and synthesis of these two things. This is a year that's going to be a major catalyst for that, and like I said, every single month is going to have its energies, its intensities. But I know I've seen a lot of people ask the question, I've had a lot of people in my personal life ask the question, when does this energy get easier. When do I start to feel like myself again? Like, well, who you are is evolving and changing. Just like the earth is changing and evolving, you're also changing and evolving as well. So you're never going to be the same person that you were a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. Like, trying to reclaim that is not going to give you what you need or want right now. We are in an expansive quality in many ways, but there's a retraction in certain areas as well. So it's interesting looking at all this stuff through the lens of astrology and just kind of observing it. And I really do feel like if you know your astrology, then it's easier to it's at the very least there'll be surprises. I guess there'll be more shocks, but nothing really surprises you. Like, there's definitely some shocking things that are happening, but it doesn't really surprise me because I'm aware of the energies and the propensities. And, those of us who study astrology and know the cycles and know the patterns and stuff like that, what happens when this planet meets up with that planet? When was the last time that happened? When was the last time that, certain events happened? Oh, it's been 5 years. It's been 20 years. It's been 100 years. It's been 500 years since the last time that happened. Unless you know that the way that we play these energies out, while history may not repeat, it certainly does rhyme. So let's take a look at the astrology. Let's take a look at what is going on right now and why I feel like things won't really chill out per se until literally the end of the month. And now initially when I was talking to one of my coworkers, because she was asking about this, I said April. I said 420. But I'm like, oh shit, I was a whole week early. It was really actually the end. I think things will chill out eventually, but things also are going to pick up in other ways too. So let's take a look at what we got going on. All right. So this is the chart for this exact moment. Of course, we do have that moon that has shifted into Leo. We do have the sun over here in Aries about a couple of weeks out. A little less than a couple of weeks out from ingressing into Taurus. So now, of course, the major things here, we do have this Mars and Uranus that are in sextile today, which is pretty nice. But Mars, of course, is now moving forward, feeling a lot better moving forward, but it is still in Cancer, so it's not necessarily the best energy for it, but it's still moving forward. And, it's trying its darndest to get to Leo as fast as possible so it can feel some fire. Now, we do have the sun, of course, in its exaltation, and it will come to its exalted point here in the next couple of days. On Tuesday, actually, it'll be at its exalted position at 19 degrees of Aries, which is actually kind of cool because it happens on Tuesday, which is Mars Day. So it's kind of interesting that it actually happens that way. But the major thing here, of course, is this traffic jam of energy that is in Pisces. We do have, of course, Venus, the planet of love, here in Pisces, which it loves to be in Pisces. Problem is that it's with Mercury retrograde, and Mercury doesn't like to be here. It's at fall here, and we also have Saturn that's also here in Pisces, adding a harsh element to things as well. So even though this Venus wants to feel love, it wants to feel the energy, it wants to feel the adoration, it wants to believe in the fantasy, because Pisces is the fantasy, it wants to believe in all that stuff. It's hard to, because the facts are murky, the facts are in many ways hidden, and with Mercury, especially retrograde here in Pisces, and Saturn ruling in many ways the establishment, it can be tough to discern what is truth and what is fiction, what is fact and what is a falsity. So Venus trying to navigate this is interesting. Did my light just go out on this? I wasn't expecting that to happen. I have this little light thing right here. I guess it went out. I guess it needs to be charged. So I guess we'll just use this guy right here. So look at that. Sometimes things happen and you have to adjust. So we have to adjust, right? So, and that's the thing about this energy too, especially with, of course, Mercury is getting ready to station direct here. Venus is also getting ready to station direct here as well, but it's that's kind of the energy right here. Just that little thing. That light goes off. Oh, snap. What happens if the light goes? Oh, you got another light. You got to back up, So it's you got to be able to have backup plans. You got to be able to plan for those sort of things. You got to plan for, And there's going to be different, and that's one part. And this is just an ADHD aside. I don't know if I have ADHD. I'm not one of those people that just self-diagnoses, but it's just an aside. It's just like, oh, don't wish for bad things to happen. Don't whatever. There's something to be said about being prepared, though. Still gotta be prepared. It's like, I know some aspects of the New Age spiritual community is like, oh my God, don't even put that energy out into the atmosphere. It's gonna happen, whether you put it out or not, right? Some things are going to happen. There are going to be wrenches that get thrown into your plans. Things are going to change. Things are going to shift. And I understand having a positive attitude and a positive mentality. I get all that. But being prepared, there's nothing wrong with being prepared either. I was prepared. That light went out. I have this one. I prefer this one. But I got that one too. And it works. And honestly, it's kind of fine without it. It's not that bad without it either. It's a little dark. That's okay. Right? So, now, this is the reason why it's not going to be chill. This is the reason why it's not going to be chill. This is the reason why it's going to be tough. This is the reason right here why April is going to feel weird. Just when we thought that we got out of the fog, just when we thought we got out of the delusion, just when we thought we weren't falling for this whole Wizard of Oz, behind the curtain, whatever, this is the reason why it's going to feel weird. But here's the thing. Saturn is all about integrity. Now that the North Node is here too, and Mercury is here, there are going to be some facts that come out during this time that will shock you over the next few weeks. Some things are going to come out, some news that will come out that's going to absolutely shock you, that will make 2024 seem docile in comparison, and will maybe even make the first 3 months of 2025 look docile in comparison. Oh, but Jay, I thought Venus was exalted here in Pisces. It loves to be in Pisces, right? It feels really good in Pisces. Yeah, it does. It may feel good in Pisces. But here's the thing about that, right? Go to let's see. Sure, Venus loves to be in Pisces. Yeah, it's at a +9. That's cute. Oh, but wait, it is conjuncting, of course, Saturn, and of course, Mercury is here too, right? And what do we know about conjunctions? They tend to amplify each other's energies. They kind of add to each other, if you will, right? So just because Venus is at +9, we got to look at what else it's with. Saturn, -5. Okay, automatically that brings Venus down to 4. Mercury is at -4. Oh man, that nets to a 0. So just because Venus is feeling very strong here, it really is acting more like a 0 than a +9. So that means that there's a positive thing here, where it's sort of like, well, this Venus, we're also going to be asking ourselves about what we truly value here. We're going to be having these conversations more because Mercury is involved. And of course, Saturn is all about integrity. Are these values in integrity with who we are in our spiritual journey and our spiritual self and how we're going to move forward in this life? Is it all in integrity or is it not in integrity, right? But it's a 0 point. So you have a choice to go either more into the positive aspect or the negative aspect. You have the choice with that 0 to implant whatever you want into that 0, because that 0 is like an egg. So you have the opportunity to kind of feed that whatever you want, and then it'll bloom, if you will, into a more negative experience or maybe a more positive experience, right? And that's the thing about this. Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of astrologers talking about how great Venus in Pisces is. They're probably not taking into consideration that it's with Saturn and that's with Mercury. That no matter how great Venus is feeling right now, Venus cannot catch a fucking break. Venus hasn't been able to catch a break in years. Like little blips here and there. But Venus has not been able to catch a break. right? It's so far away from Mars. It's so far away from Mars. Now, I mean, at least they're trining each other, so that's kind of nice, right? So at least we get that energy with Venus trining Mars here at 25 degrees, right? So ironically, even though Venus is feeling its strongest right now with the +9, and even though it has the highest score here, it's actually more like a 0, right? And if Venus is 0 and in Pisces, it might as well be negative. It might as well be like, oh my gosh, it's the end of the world. So Venus, ironically, is kind of looking to Mars for a little bit of help. Even though Mars is at -2, at least the sun, at least Mars has the sun in the sign that it rules, right? So in many ways, a lot of the comfort that's going to come right now is going to come from not the fast gains, not the immediate, not the thing that's going to grow immediately, but it's going to come from long, sustained, consistent efforts. And it's not going to just be something that's going to be super fast, super quick, something that's going to satiate us right now. It's going to take some time. It's going to take some effort. And for a lot of people, they're not going to like that because humans love shortcuts. Venus in Pisces, it wants to be the pearl inside the clam. It wants to be the jewel. It wants to be the treasure chest at the bottom of the ocean. It wants to be adored and loved. Hard for it to be adored and loved when Saturn is there. And Saturn is this more rugged old man that's bringing some reality to the situation. And then you got Mercury over there too, which is just trying to get the facts done, but it's hard to do so in Pisces. So a lot of the facts are twisted and morphed and shifted, and the narrative and the cadence and the voice and whatever like that, it's different. And it's crazy too because we are past the point now because the sun, of course, is now in Aries, and awareness-wise, we know that there's a delusion. We know that there's a lot of fake that's going on right now. And yet people still continue to believe in the story and in the narrative and in the lie. That's the crazy part about all this, is the continuation of people believing in the lie. Why? Because the lie is comfortable. Because the lie provides some sort of instant gratification. Because the lie maintains that ego, right? Not the ego that helps you to survive, and not necessarily the ego that helps you, because the ego is good for some things. The ego is good for a lot of things. There's a reason why we have it. It's good for helping us to survive. It's good for helping us find our gusto and to, be bold and to go forward. But once you get to a certain cushiony point, and then your position is threatened, that's when the ego becomes a bit of a prison. Because now your position is being threatened. Your position, which has been safe, which has been secure in a sense, now it's being a little bit threatened. And when you're presented with the facts and stuff like that, you have to be able to cast your ego aside if, you're seeing that the values or what's spiritually aligned and spiritual integrity, if it's not aligned with that cushiony white tower, if you will, that keeps you separated from all of the hardness of the world. Because that's what Saturn is. Saturn is hardness. It's hardness. Venus wants to be soft, especially in Pisces, the most mutable of the mutable signs. But Saturn is rough, and it's hard. It's iron, okay? It's not gold, it's not silver, it's not platinum, it's not bronze, it's iron. So it's not really shiny. So when you bring together the planet that wants to be the shiniest and the planet that is not the shiniest at all, you're in for not the easiest of times. So that's why we have to look for that long sustained growth and not necessarily the instant gratification. Whether that instant gratification is to uphold some belief that we have or to uphold some ivory tower kind of moment. But the fact of the matter is that the ivory tower, that is the way that human civilization has been run, especially Western civilization. We have been doing so many patchwork, like we've been doing a patchwork job. The fact of the matter is that the whole thing needs to come down, be destroyed. But the problem is that people don't want to destroy it, and there's different reasons why people want to uphold it. It's weird. I'm seeing it on both sides. It's like there's some people that want to uphold it because they want to kind of bring it back to its former glory. I get that. Then there are people that want to tear it down but don't really have a solution on what to put in place of it. They're probably just going to rebuild the old thing. That's the weird thing about it. They're going to rebuild what what they think it should be like. And that's just based off of all the patchwork that we've done to it. So I want you to think of it. I want you to think of like a giant, like obelisk kind of building, right? And I want you to think of how people want to it's done, there's a lot of patchwork that's been done. So a lot of different kinds of materials have been used to kind of erect this monument, if you will, right? There are some people that want to just get rid of all of the material that we've used in the past and that we've used to kind of like patch it and kind of like put things together, and it's all these different colors and it's all this it's made of many different materials, whatever like that. Some people want to kind of get rid of all that and bring it back to the purity of what it was before and just build it stronger. And then there are other people that want to continue to just do the patchwork. And there are other people that want to just tear it all the way down but then not know how to replace it. And then there are those who was like, there's something new that we can build this with. Something that we've never done before. Something that we've never used before. And that is the timeline that I hope we're on. Honestly, it's like, if I'm just being real, I hope that's the timeline that we're on, right? Because there's so many people that want to tear down the systems. I get it. And Pluto did a lot of that while it's in Capricorn. It's tearing down the systems. Now it's tearing down a lot of the socio systems because of it being an Aquarius. A lot of the ideologies and a lot of those systems is going to be tearing down. And then when it gets to Pisces, it's going to be tearing down a lot of the spiritual, religious stuff. It's going to be tearing all that down and transforming it, right? So I get it. People want to tear it down, but what are you going to replace it with? And this is why it's good to kind of have a plan. This is why it's good to at least, to some extent, know who you are. But you have a lot of people that don't know who they are. Mercury went retrograde in Aries, Venus went retrograde in Aries, Neptune's going to retrograde in Aries, go back into Pisces, Saturn's going to retrograde in Aries, go back into Pisces. So when it comes to knowing who we are at the fundamental level, which is Aries, there's a lot of planets that are retrograding here, meaning that there are many aspects of our consciousness that are having to review the Aries energy, right? Mercury, the mentality of things, the way that we think and all that sort of stuff, that has to go back over and review the whole basic Aries things. Venus, the way that we receive things, and in many ways the way that we kind of relate to relationships, that's having to go through a review period as it comes to who we are at a fundamental level. Neptune, which is a generational planet, and it affects many of like the major current events of the world, and spirituality and these sort of things, and fantasy and the stories that we tell ourselves, that has to go through a review period as far as who we are on a larger scale because it is so generational. And then of course Saturn, when it comes to the hard work that we do, the legacy, why we are here, karma has to go through that as well through this review period. So this energy is going to be with us for a while. It's It's going to be with us for a while. So, you know, now, if we just kind of go forward here, let's see, hold on. All right. So we're going to see, of course, Venus is going to cross over Saturn here on Monday, right? We have Mercury, which is going to actually station direct also on this day. So now, in many ways, you kind of have Mars leading the pack, if you will, as far as like the major planets. It's in front of Jupiter, Uranus, Chiron, the Sun, etc. You know, it's going to be leading the pack, if you will. So it'll especially be leading the pack once it gets beyond Pluto. That opposition, right? So as we move this forward, that moon's going to come into Virgo, right? The sun's going to conjunct Chiron here, and I think this is actually a pretty important point because this will actually be, from next Friday into Saturday. I think it's actually a pretty big point. Wouldn't be surprised if we see something interesting come up here because of this conjunction, just because they have a tendency to amplify each other's energies. This can, of course, this is going to be coming with that moon that's going to be in Libra as well. So it's actually going to be going into the full moon. We're essentially going to be seeing a full moon with Sun and Chiron. And full moons, of course, bring a lot of energy too. And it's like this massive reflection moment. I wouldn't be surprised if we get some kind of interesting energy where someone is putting their wounds out on display and acting upon them. I pray that nothing terrible happens, but I would not be surprised if, because this is Aries, because this is Chiron, this could be leading to some kind of violent situation. Hopefully that's not the case. But of course, we will see this full moon that's going to be happening here at 23 degrees. That's going to, of course, be happening here on Saturday. Next Saturday, we're going to be seeing that energy on the 12th. What's interesting too, though, is that this full moon is in square to this Mars. Even though it's not exact, it is the sun, it is a full moon, so I give this quite a large orb of influence. So we have this square over to Mars, which is in Cancer, which lets me know that this can be a situation where if we can't find, I guess, comfort in a bit of this chaos that we're experiencing right now, if we can't, find comfort in, not needing that immediate fix, not needing that immediate gratification, then, we can find ourselves acting out. And like I said, Mars in Cancer is like a temper tantrum, right? So, especially now, because Mars is desperately trying to get back to a fire sign so it can feel a little bit better, but it's still in shadow. So it's not exactly like it's super strong right now. It's not exactly super strong. Now, what's interesting, of course, too, is that, now we have Venus that's at 24-37. Saturn's moving to 26, right? We had that Mercury that's going to be here, getting ready to move into Aries pretty shortly. So, and at this point, they're even further apart now, about 1.5 degrees or so, that this Venus and Saturn are apart. So we might feel like a slight little bit of reprieve, but not really. Not really. It's not really going to come like this. Not that easy, right? Because we'll see, of course, that Venus is going to station on this full moon, pretty much, right? So you see that full moon happening here at 23 degrees. And that Venus is going to station within hours of it. Well, look, it's red. And then, bam, it's going to station within hours of this full moon, right? And this Venus is in awkward aspect to this full moon. It's a 150-degree angle. It's the awkward stare from across the room. The awkward stare is, are you going to react in a way that is going to be reflective of the fact that you, at any means necessary, want it to look like gold, and you want it to look like pearls, and you want it to, whether the situation that you're kind of projecting yourself onto, or even you yourself, like you was like, this is a moment where you have to acknowledge your faults, acknowledge the faults of humanity, of society, And instead of this whole like, oh well, you know, turning a blind eye to things, or you know, oh well, you know, it'll you know, continuing along the same path and taking the same actions is going to yield me the result that I want. I have to just keep pushing. It's like, no, there's in some areas you don't keep pushing, and this is one of them. Continuing to push the illusion, continuing to push the lie, continuing to push the idea that the pearl just becomes that way overnight. No, it takes hundreds of years for a pearl to get that way. So, things take time. And Saturn is the planet of time. So the danger here is people needing some sort of instant gratification. It's like you're taking the cake out of the oven too fast. Just because you're so excited about the way it's going to taste. And I get it. It's your grandma's recipe, handed down generation to generation. And it's an amazing cake. And it's going to taste fantastic. I get it. I get it. You want to sink your teeth into that cake? But it needs 10 more minutes. So how can you kind of corral that energy back and corral that need, that insatiable desire to sink your teeth into that thing before it's ready? That's in many ways where we are. And we're going to see something play out where someone is just so impatient that they react and they snap. It's full moon. It's going to happen. Don't know exactly how, but it's going to happen. So that's the astrology. It's the astrology, right? So continue to move this forward. Venus is now direct. Mercury is direct. Mercury will come into Aries here on the 16th, while the moon is, of course, here in Sag. And now this Venus and this Saturn are still about 1.5 degrees apart from each other. Mars is getting ready to come into Cancer. Getting ready to come into Leo. It's right here at the edge, if you will. So we have this trine between Mercury and Mars, you know. And we also have the moon here too with the North Node. So we have this grand water trine right here on Tuesday the 15th, right? Between the moon, between Mars, between Mercury, and the North Node is here too, adding a little bit of spice of, like, you know, fate, if you will. Be very interesting to see what happens on this day, especially considering that it's going to be very, very edgy, right? And it's not like none of these planets are well aspected. The Mars, much rather be in Capricorn, where it's exalted. The moon, much rather be in Taurus, where it's exalted. Mercury, much rather be in Virgo. So we have 3 fallen energies in trine, in water. So to say that Tuesday won't be an emotionally crazy, insane day, especially considering that, I mean, this is happening later on in the day, mind you, here on the East Coast. So just throughout the day, that moon is going to be hitting all these energies, and it's going to be sensitive. It's going to hit Venus, it'll hit Saturn, it'll hit the North Node, all leading up to the trine here at 29 degrees. Right? That moon will shift into Sag, and then Mercury will shift into Sag a few hours later, and will begin its conjunction, of course, with Neptune, going into early Wednesday morning, right? Mind you, Venus and Saturn are still with each other, right? So, now, we're only halfway through the month. Let's take a look as we continue this forward. Well, Mars will shift into Leo on Friday. Thank the Lord, right? I mean, yeah, we'll definitely feel a lot better. I know Mars will feel better with that. It immediately goes from, you know, -2 to +6. So that's pretty nice. The sun also gets a little bit of a boost because the sun is in Mars's house, natural house, and Mars is in the sun's natural house. So we're going to get this injection of positive energy, if you will, this injection of this fiery, passionate, want to go for it energy. And Venus, yeah, it's at +7, but still remember, it is still with Saturn. And Saturn is at, well, Saturn at this point is at +3. So it's getting a little bit better, right? So things start to look a little bit, start to turn around a little bit. Seemingly, right? We got a lot more positive energy that's kind of being injected here. But, wait, there is more. That doesn't mean that it's not still hard for this Venus, right? Doesn't mean that it's not still hard for this Venus. So continue forward, right? And it's one thing I didn't actually mention is these minor asteroids that are going to get in between Saturn and Venus. First, you have the minor asteroid Icarus. That will be happening on the 10th. Icarus is, you know, obviously flying too close to the sun. So this is when your ego gets a little bit too big. You know, you fly too close to the sun, then you fall into the ocean. So that's what this represents. So there's going to be this element here where it's like someone's going to fly way too close to the sun and get burned. And I actually have the feeling that the way that this is going to manifest itself is that somebody, and I'm going to say more so like in the news aspect, someone in the establishment, but somebody who seemingly was playing on the side of, I guess, of, you know, it's all a fucking game, but it's going to be seemingly on the side of people that are looking for the truth, like a truth seeker, is probably played the game and flew too close to the sun and is actually going to burn out and fall, and actually is going to be implicated, if you will, as in someone that you would think is like, oh yeah, they're on the right side of history. They're going to end up being on the wrong side of history. They probably initially were on the right side of history, but somewhere along the way they sold out, and then they got too close to the sun, and their wings, you know, melted, and they're going to fall into the ocean. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that somebody prominent flies too close to the sun, gets exposed, and falls into the ocean. And then, of course, we're going to see Apollo move into this space, right? And this, of course, is happening right before 420, of course, right? So it's interesting this is happening on the weekend. And now, of course, Apollo is a god of war. So, and because this is in Pisces, this definitely can be dealing with some spiritual aspects, some religious aspect. Wouldn't be surprised if we see some sort of escalation in the Middle East with this kind of a transit. Hate to say that, but that just looks like it's very possible, especially with Mars now in Leo, and especially with Mercury now here in Aries as well, and the sun finishing up in Aries. Would not be surprised if we see some type of escalation. Now, whether it's something that continues or whether it burns off when the sun goes into Taurus, we'll have to see. But there is a possibility for some escalation with Apollo entering into this Venus-Saturn dance that we're going to be experiencing this entire month. And then the North Node moves into it. So it's interesting too, because like you have Apollo, Saturn, North Node. And then the North Node and Apollo switch positions, right? And then another day, the North Node enters into the middle of this energy, right? By this time, of course, we're having Mars that's opposing the moon, is opposing Pluto, right? The sun now, of course, going to be in Taurus, squaring over to this Mars, right? But this whole little thing right here is still playing out, right? And it's going to stay there for a couple of days. You saw that? It's going to be there for the 21st, the 22nd, the 23rd. Finally moves out on the 24th. So it literally stops for like 3 days in a way. And then by this point, Venus is catching up to Saturn. It's at 2701, 2710. That moon is getting ready to conjunct this space as well. We'll see that moon conjunct these two energies, right? It's going to hit the 27th degree. This happens, of course, while Venus moves just beyond Saturn. So we're going to have this energy right here. So pay attention to Thursday, April 24th. That's going to be a major day with all those energies meeting up at 27 degrees, right? Then, of course, as we continue to move this forward, we'll finally start to see Venus make a little bit of separation from Saturn. And the energy at this point will start to kind of chill out a little bit. But what's interesting too is that we are moving into, of course, that new moon in Taurus, right? So you would think that with this new moon in Taurus that we're going to see that things will kind of chill out a little bit. Things will kind of get a little bit more grounded by that time. Venus is almost a full degree away from Saturn, still within the realm of influence, of course, of Saturn. But things start to kind of chill out a little bit and not feel as harsh with this new moon here in Taurus, which will give us an opportunity to plant some incredible seeds that we can harvest later this year. But here's the thing. Even though this is kind of like the moment where things kind of start to cool off a little bit, we have this aspect. When I saw this, I was like, wow, okay. We're going to have this moon meet up with Jupiter here. And this is coming pretty much as Venus is ingressing into Aries. So we'll see Venus ingress into Aries as the moon is conjuncting Jupiter here, right? And this is a pretty big moment because I think this is going to pretty much have us all look back over the course of April, and we're going to go into the sort of reflective moment here. But because it's with Jupiter and Jupiter is with Gemini, that's the thing about this. Information is very much so decentralized, right? And that's really the world that we're going into. And I think that should be the epiphany that I think that people have, is that, like, you know, we're going into a more decentralized world where when it comes to information and stuff, we can carefully curate the information that's brought to us. There are certain things, of course, that everyone will know about, but I keep seeing like a lot of these different, you know, I guess political pundits and doing things like that. It's weird. As an astrologer, I kind of have to pay attention to this stuff. At first, I really didn't want to pay attention to all this sort of stuff, but as an astrologer, I kind of have to because it's so intertwined. It's insane, you know. So, but people are looking, I guess, for like, what's that defining moment? What's that defining event that everyone's eyes are going to be glued to, and it's going to change the world? I think that's what people are wanting and looking for. I don't know if that moment will actually come. And if it does come, it's going to come when we least expect it. So it's going to come when we let our guard down. Uranus hasn't made it to Gemini yet. Right? Uranus has not made it to Gemini yet. But that's the world that we're going into. Right? So information is decentralized. It's not... And that's the thing too. I think we've gotten to this point with humanity where it's like, we feel like the world has expanded so much, now there's no more space to explore. But that's actually not the case. I felt like we thought that space was the final frontier, but we're actually going to be going more into like this digital AI sphere. The whole, like, if you've seen like movies or cartoons or whatever like that, I love anime, right? So there's this whole trope of like fully immersive virtual reality video games. That's going to be a thing. That's going to happen. And it'll probably start when Uranus goes into Gemini. I don't know, like, when exactly when Uranus is Gemini, but something's going to come out while Uranus is Gemini. It probably won't be perfected for a while, right? But the first of that technology will probably come out while Uranus is in Gemini, right? And that's the thing too, like when it comes to like a lot of these larger events and we're us looking at that thing that's going to really shift humanity, whatever like that, and his moon on Jupiter, which Jupiter doesn't like to be in Gemini, right? But it's like, how do we feel about all these competing ideologies and all of these different things, and this, you know, how do we make sense and feel about all of these different cultures that are coming together? Do we try to make everything one amorphous gray blob? No borders, no definitions. You gotta remember, this is mercurial. This isn't emotional, right? This is mercurial. This is more about the facts. It's more about the reality, right? And I think that's where a lot of people get tripped up. It's like, especially with Venus moving into Aries at this transitionary moment too, right? It And of course Mercury here at the middle of Aries, getting ready to finally come out of shadow, right? This is about the facts. It's not about feelings. And I know that a lot of people say that, but it really is. It's mercurial, right? Why do you think Mercury doesn't really like to be in Pisces? It's like trying to talk on water. You can't talk underwater. You can't get your point across. When all these different things kind of get in the way that kind of cloud it, it's hard to talk. It's hard to speak. It's hard to see, right? Pisces is the ocean just as much as it is a fog. And what is a fog? Very tiny water particles that cloud your vision and you can't see. So that's the thing about this. I think, we are going into a time where, I think the biggest dreams have yet to be dreamt. I feel like the dreams that we feel like we've had, they're probably more of a delusion or an illusion. A lot of the dreams that people may have. I feel like the biggest dreams have yet to be dreamt, and we are going into a world that is going to be more external, more extrovert, more out there. The Leo King has been talking about this, and I definitely see that, especially if you look at the outer planets and where they are going into masculine signs, right? Pluto is in Aquarius. Uranus is going to be going into Gemini. Neptune is going to be going into Aries. These are more generational planets that affect everybody. We are going into a more external, out there, extroverted world. You can't just sit behind the keyboard anymore. You can't just sit behind the computer anymore. I'm sorry, you can't work from home anymore. You can work from home, but you got to go out into the world too. But this whole idea that we've created, that we can work from home and, our 9 to 5 can just be from home and we can just sit behind the keyboard and never communicate with people. No, the world is pushing us to get to know our neighbors again. Gemini's neighbors. Gemini is the local community, not the world, but the local. So in many ways, there is a bit of a contraction because a lot of countries have lost their identity. They're trying to find it again. Why do you think Trump is doing all this stuff, all these things with the tariffs to try and bring things back to America? Because doing it the way that we were doing it is unsustainable. Whether you love or hate the dude, whatever like that. The fact of the matter is that he came in and saw how the system had been running for decades. It's not sustainable to continue to outsource things. Just like in your life, it's not sustainable to continue to outsource everything. You can outsource some things, but you can't outsource everything. Something's got to come from within. Some things you got to do. That requires learning some new skills. That requires being a little bit more curious. That requires being a little bit more ingenuitive. That requires talking to people. I know that's scary. And trust me, I'm an extroverted introvert. I would love nothing more than to just chill at home all day and watch anime and play video games. But I'd still enjoy talking to people. I enjoy speaking. I don't have a problem with public speaking. I actually enjoy it. Do I get nervous every single time? Yeah, but I actually really enjoy it. So it allows me to get my ideas out there. It allows me to, for me, it's sort of like, it is sort of experimental. You get things out of your head, you kind of write things down, you speak it out, whatever like that. You run things by certain people that kind of get your weirdness. For me, that's my dad. And you flesh things out. But if you just keep it all up in here and all to yourself, you can never flesh these things out. And that's how April ends. On this big pondering moment, because it's Jupiter, it's going to make it big and expansive, even though and Gemini doesn't like to be there, but at least at least it's moving forward. So it's Yeah, we're going to be thinking a little bit bigger and feeling big, a little bit bigger, and it's going to be very ideological. But Venus is moving into Aries too, which is going to bring a lot of heat, a lot of spice, if you will. But of course, Venus immediately goes to -2. Jupiter's at -5. The moon is at +1, which nets to a -5 with that Jupiter. So it's not exactly going to be easy. At least the sun's at +4. That's the funny thing. The sun's at +4. Where is it at? Taurus. Fixed Earth, so the slowest sign. But it's all about building things slowly and surely over time to something that you can really value. Saturn is at +3. It's the next strongest planet. Yeah, it's in Pisces, but it is Saturn, the planet of hard work, attrition, adulting, growing up. It's about doing the spiritually right thing here with it being +3. Right? So that's where we are right now. And there's nothing to be afraid of. It's nothing to be afraid of. But it's just interesting to see it too, because like I see people there's and it's in both ways too. I do feel like in many ways a lot of the cultural I'll just come on and say it. A lot of, I guess, the cultural degradation of this country and other countries based off of this insatiable desire to destroy definitions and to destroy boundaries and to destroy, you know, to kind of make everything the same, this one big amorphous blob, and things can be going in and out and changing all the time. There's no sense of definition to anything. I'm sorry, there are fixed planets, y'all, so like there's fixed energy, y'all. Not only that, but you got Mercury that's it's always defining things. It's always finding the facts. It's always finding things. It's always trying to define something, right? So there's like, we can't live in that world. This whole idea of the world being like this utopian paradise where everyone is like probably like this one shade of brown or whatever like that, and like gold eyes, and everything's just one. It's not gonna happen that way. The universe is not even setting it up that way. It's not happening. It's not a bad thing either. It's not a bad thing that the multicultural paradise that some people want is not going to happen. But you know what's not also going to happen? Is this complete reversion back to religious fundamentalism. That's not going to happen either. They're both getting torn asunder, if you will. And something else will replace it. Something different. But both of them are happening, right? We have all this energy in Pisces that's finishing up. And Pluto still has to go through Pisces. It's going to be a bit before it hits there. But if you think about some of these outer planets, right? Think about it. Uranus is now dispositing this Pluto. Once it goes into Gemini, this is going to be putting much more of a focus on local community and establishing those relationships and establishing those connections and stuff like that. It's not about out there. That'd be Sag. That'd be out there. Or worldly systems. That'd be Capricorn. Right? We're not there right now. There's nothing there right now. Pluto's not coming back into Capricorn in all of our lives. It's already destroyed it. So we are seeing the last dying breaths of this old world order. It's going to be something new. That means that even the revolutionaries of this old world order are also going away. All of it is. And that may be a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow, because it's not going to look the way that you thought or that you wanted, and people are going to be throwing temper tantrums. Especially once Uranus goes into Gemini, and now it's dispositing Pluto from an air sign and not an earth sign. This is why you want to get ahead of this energy, so you can be in the right place at the right time and know the right people and be extroverted and connect to people. Because if you just try and just sit behind the computer and sit behind your screen forever and never communicate, you're not going to. There are new frontiers that are opening up. There are new frontiers that are opening up. The Wild West is opening up again. We thought we've explored it all, but we actually haven't. And that's why the training wheels are coming off and why God is saying to go forth and ride. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to ride your bike a little bit further away from me. And I think that's part of the fear, right? Is that, like, if God's letting the training wheels going off and it's allowing us, the universe is allowing us to kind of explore and to go out there more, there's this fear of, like, can we get back? Of course you can get back. The map is always right here. The map is always right there. I think the other big thing, too, and this is something that I've kind of been thinking about just in general, and then I'll draw some cards, but question that we keep asking ourselves, that we've asked ourselves for thousands of years, is how should humans live? That is the basic fundamental question that humans have been asking themselves for the entirety of it. How should humans live? Animals are different. They do change over time and they do adaptations. But they don't ponder on the whole thought of how they should live like humans do. That's what makes us different and separates us from animals. Animals, like I said, they go through their adaptations over time, hundreds of thousands of years. But humans, we always ask ourselves, how should we live? How should we live? Should we pray 5 times a day? Should we not pray 5 times a day? Should we drink alcohol? Should we not drink alcohol? Should we do this thing? Should we not do this thing? And we do that. That is the fundamental question. And then, of course, you have certain people that maybe get into a position of power that say, oh, we should live this way. And inevitably, there will always be some sort of revolution, because even though that way of living may work for that period of time, it will eventually come to an end. That includes the way that we are currently living our lives right now will eventually come to an end. And there are people that are clambering to the old way for many reasons. Some people because they have power and influence and money, and they don't want to give that up. But some people, even though it's a bit of a prison, they found comfort in the prison, and they are afraid of the change. Right? Some people feel like we've gone too far. We need to go back, in a sense. Some people feel like we haven't gone far enough, but they don't have a solution to what happens after they tear the bitch down, which means that they're not a true revolutionary and they don't have vision. Because they just want to needlessly and meaninglessly destroy things without trying to create something in its place. Pluto may be the planet of destruction, but is represented by the phoenix. From the ashes, something new will be born. Some people don't want anything to be reborn from the ashes, and that is dangerous as well. So, how should humans live? I think we'll continue to ask ourselves that question for hundreds of thousands of years. I do know one thing. The energy this April is intense. It's going to be wild. You will be shocked. Hopefully not surprised, but you will be shocked. But the energy will start to get a little bit easier by the end of the month. But it's really just going to morph and change into something else. So take things as they come, take things in stride, and know that you are stronger and more powerful than you give yourself credit for. I had the 6 of Cups in reverse. I just said that this whole wanting nostalgia and wanting things to look the same like it always has, whatever like that thirst for it, it's in reverse. So this is definitely a card about growing up. Definitely a card about growing up. This could even be a moment where we might look back on something with rose-tinted glasses and be like, wow, that was so awesome. And then we realize that it actually wasn't as great as we thought it was. Right? Oh, I have the Wheel of Fortune and the 10 of Wands. You know what this tells me? This tells me that the fortune in our life will turn with hard work. The 10 of Wands is not a bad card here. It's not a bad card. It's talking about, carrying your load, being willing to carry your load, being willing to, yeah, you're kind of weighed down, if you will. This is sort of like this. I don't even know if you guys will be able to relate to this. This is more like a video game thing. But in certain video games, like certain RPGs, right? Say you have like all the items that you kind of collect, right? You have like maybe a limit to how many items that you can collect, right? Like you have like a capacity. If you carry over that capacity, it takes you longer to kind of move whatever. You don't have as much speed and as much agility because your carrying capacity is over and it slows you down. Ironically, the universe is telling us is like, yo, if it's really heavy and it's actually slowing you down a little bit, that's actually the route to take. If it's hard to carry in many ways, that's actually the route to take. Not this quick, easy, light shit. It's about like the slow build up, not immediate, not instant. I gotta take my own damn advice on this for several different things. We're all here too. We're all in this energy, so no one's immune to it. Just because I can talk about the astrology and I can draw the cards and everything like that doesn't mean that I have to work on. Doesn't mean that I don't have to work on these things, because I definitely do. There are certain areas in life where I'm like, I wish that this would just come faster and easier. But I'm realizing, no, you have to take the long route. You have to carry the load. But that's how you're going to build the beautiful house, or how you're going to build the garden or whatever like that. You have to take multiple trips. I'm sorry, you can't carry all the groceries in on one trip. You have to do multiple trips. If you try and carry it in on just one trip, you're going to drop a bag, a bottle's going to break, some eggs are going to break, and you're just going to be frustrated. Then you have to go back to the store and get more and spend more money. It's probably better to just take multiple trips. As much as it sucks, and I get it, I don't like taking multiple trips when I get groceries from my car. But with this one, God is urging us to do so. That's going to do it for your video today. I trust that this message will assist you on your journey this April, but I'm sure I will see you guys before the end of the month. But y'all take care, stay blessed, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.